There was once a very wealthy and successful businessman who was planning to expand his business empire by setting up a new factory in a small rural village. This village was remote and difficult to access, but the businessman saw great potential there due to the cheap labor and abundantly available natural resources. As the businessman was traveling to the village, he came across a river that needed to be crossed in order to reach his destination. He was presented with two options: taking a long detour by road, which would delay his journey by over half an hour, or taking a small boat ride directly across the river, which would only take 20 minutes. Being a shrewd businessman focused on efficiency, he decided to take the faster boat route to save time. The boat was very small and humble, a simple wooden rowboat. The businessman noticed it was being rowed by an elderly villager who seemed very poor and uneducated based on his simple clothing and weathered appearance. Feeling superior, the arrogant businessman mocked the boatman, asking, "Do you even know who is sitting in your little boat?" The boatman replied with humility, "No, sir, I don't know who you are." The businessman scoffed, "Don't you watch TV or read the newspapers? I'm one of the biggest industrialists in the country." With an honest smile, the boatman responded, "Apologies, sir, but I actually can't read or write. When my father passed away at a young age, I had to drop out of school to start working odd jobs to support my family's survival. Reading and writing was a luxury I could never afford." Hearing this, the businessman laughed condescendingly and said, "If you are illiterate and can't even read or write, what's the point of living such a worthless life?" The boatman felt ashamed by the insult but kept quiet and focused on rowing them across the river. After a few minutes, he tried to make conversation again. "Sir, you see that large open land on the other side of the river? In a few months' time, that's where your big new factory will be built to manufacture the bottled mineral water products for your company." The businessman arrogantly retorted, "Oh, and how would you, an illiterate villager, know anything about my commercial plans?" With a simple smile, the boatman explained, "Well, sir, even if I can't read or write, I do know that the mineral water bottles we see in the cities and towns get manufactured in factories like the one you are building. I may be uneducated, but I'm not completely ignorant of the world." Patronizingly, the businessman chuckled, "You really think you're so smart, don't you? But if you've never even set foot outside this village, then what do you actually know about the real world and modern industries? Your village life is meaningless." The boatman said nothing and kept rowing silently, as industrial arrogance had clearly blinded the businessman's mind. However, as they were mid-river, tragedy suddenly struck as their small boat crashed into a submerged rock and began taking on water rapidly. The boatmen realized there was no way to stop the sinking boat from their eventual demise in the deep river. As the situation turned dire, the businessman started panicking. He turned to the boatman urgently and asked, "You there, do you at least know how to swim? Perhaps you can try to swim us both to safety." Staying calm, the boatman shook his head with a wry smile. "Why do you ask, sir?" "No, I don't know how to swim, actually." The businessman began losing his composure, screaming hysterically, "What? You can't even swim? Oh my God, then we are going to drown! What a pointless life you live, being utterly useless." At that moment, the boatman looked the wealthy businessman in the eye with a steady gaze and said, "You're right, sir. I may not know how to swim, but unlike you, I do know how to stay afloat and survive even in life's darkest storms." As the boat fully submerged under the river water, the boatman quickly grabbed a piece of driftwood and used it to keep both himself and the businessman afloat until other villagers came to their rescue. The smart boatman had grown up learning all the essential skills for survival in that rural river environment. While the wealthy businessman had looked down on the rural villager as being inadequate and meaningless, it was actually the humble boatman's simple lifestyle and survival skills that ended up saving both their lives that day. The arrogant businessman realized his mistake in mocking and devaluing the villager based on education alone. As they were pulled to safety, the ashamed businessman recognized the boatman's resourcefulness and wisdom in that crisis moment. He realized the villager's life of struggles had given him a wealth of practical knowledge and skills beyond what money or status could buy. With new perspective, the businessman committed himself to being more humble and appreciative of all people's value, regardless of their background or circumstance in life. Because you never know when you might need to rely on someone else's abilities, no matter how small or insignificant they may first appear.